you're not going to always find joy in the cooking and the meal making process. That said, there are ways to, or there are things, and then there are ways that you can bring some amount of joy to your process and or to just thinking about food in general. And the reason I'm sharing that is because not everybody loves cooking and not everyone finds it relaxing, calming, therapeutic. Some people are just doing it for utility. You need to eat, so they will do that. If they are unable to outsource it, or have someone else take care of the meal making, not everybody is going to enjoy it. That said, for those of us who do enjoy cooking, it's not always going to feel like joy for a variety of reasons. And so as you go into your week or the next couple of 7 days, let's say whenever you watch this, here are a couple of things I remind myself of as a way to tap into the joy, not just from the eating experience, but from the preparation experience. Save and except for when I'm just not feeling it, or when I'm sick, for example, and cooking is the last thing I want to do. But for the most part, I don't always experience joy around cooking, joy around the meal making process. And so, as you go into this week, here's what I want to remind you of. A couple of things I want to share with you. Three main things. One is you are going to be imperfect at it. And it's not always going to be the best tasting meal, and it's not always going to be the perfect meal. It's always not going to go the way you want it to go. That said, once you have in the back of your mind the premise of you doing it, why are you doing it? If you're doing it to make sure you eat, then that's a good enough reason, and let that be enough, because it's okay to just eat. At least that be the purpose. You're not always gonna enjoy it. It might not feel calming to you. It might not feel all the other joyful things. And so knowing that releases you of having to always find that joy in it, or to experience or to expect joy out of it. Sometimes you're just doing it because you need to do it, and that's okay. So that's one. And the second thing is to recognize that you don't need a Pinterest kitchen to enjoy your cooking or to create tasty meals or gorgeous meals. As long as your setup works for you, that's all that matters. So even if your spice drawer is not organized, even if you have things put in multiple places, as long as you know where they are and it doesn't hinder your process of getting meal from the fridge, the pantry, um, to a table, that's all that matters. Because at the end of the day, it's not about, again, perfection. I'm gonna always say that it is not gonna be a perfect process. It's not gonna be a Pinterest worthy clean process all the time. Sometimes your kitchen is gonna be messy. Sometimes you're gonna have dishes piled on one side. Not everybody is going to clean as they go. I'm not somebody who's going to judge. I certainly, while I do clean as I go for the most part, a messy kitchen is part of cooking. That's just the way I see it, and that's something to be mindful of. It's your kitchen. Nobody else can judge you. It's your kitchen, and even if someone does, who gives? Who gives? Fill in the blanks, right? The other thing, or the third thing, is to remember or to acknowledge that it's okay that you don't have to cook everything from scratch. The amount of wars and that I see online about what constitutes cooking and what doesn't, and while returning to the slowness that comes from cooking, I am a big proponent of that, like not rushing, taking your time, slowing down. At the same time, not everyone has the same time to give to meal making. Not everybody values it in the same way. And so work with what you have and work where you're at, which means you don't have to make the food from scratch. You can utilize your pre-bagged, you can utilize your pre-packaged food, utilize your frozen foods, You don't have to cook everything from scratch. If you want to have the time and it's a priority for you, then sure. But release yourself from this need that it must happen from scratch. Otherwise, you're not being good or whatever you're assigning to it. It does not have to be made from scratch. As long as you can get it again from its natural state into a cooked meal or a meal that's made with the intention of you eating it, that is all that matters. And then the last thing, because this is a short video, I don't really don't have much to say, is that a 15-minute meal is never a 15-minute meal, at least for most of us. I mean, unless if you have your process down and it's a 15-minute process, it's a 15-minute process. But I find that with cooking, especially if you're following other recipes or following someone's recipe, or even if you're not following someone's recipe and it's you doing your thing, this comes back to the slowness or recognizing that it's going to take the time it takes. So a 15-minute meal is never just a 15-minute meal because you have the prep that needs to take place. And unless you have done that prep ahead or in advance, say you did that a couple days before, or you're going to do the prep today and then make the meal 2 days later or the next day, then that 15-minute meal does not typically include that prep time. So you always have to factor in what needs to take place before you can actually pull a pot out. And there are a lot of things that might need to take place. Like I said, you might need to get the ingredients. If you don't have it, you have to go grocery shopping. Again, which is why I say meal planning takes energy and it's something that happens before you actually start to make the meal. So you have to check what ingredients you have. You have to gather the ingredients. Then you have to, arrange, sort, measure the ingredients that you're going to use. Know what the process is going to be. So if you have multiple stations that you need to work, if you need to be using the oven and you need to be using the stove top, what needs to get started first so that it is what needs to get started first because it takes the longest, so you can then do the other things that take a shorter time, so that by the time what takes the longest is done, you can get everything on the table or on your plate. So it's important to remember these things as we enter every week. At least it's something I like to run through every week as reminders for myself. Regardless of what I know my week is gonna look like, is to remember that I don't have to make everything from scratch. That it's okay to utilize things that are pre-packaged, pre-cooked, pre-chopped, that type of thing, pre-seasoned even. To remember that my kitchen doesn't have to be Pinterest perfect. Sometimes it's gonna be messy. Sometimes it's gonna be clean, and if cleaning it helps me move better, then I will make the effort for. But if cleaning gets in the way of me making a meal, then it bears just understanding that I might just need to let that go and just prepare the meal and then deal with the cleanup after. And again, cleanup, especially if you're somebody who's on a newer divergent, these things are challenging, and so systems help with that. So doing working on a process, building a process, a system rather, to handle these things will oftentimes help you through your time in the kitchen. And what was the fourth thing? A 15-minute meal is never just a 15-minute meal. I feel like what was the first thing? I forget what the first thing was, but these are a couple of reminders I wanted to share with you as you go into your week. And remember that nourishment is not just one thing, but when you're doing it through food, remember you want to do it one bowl at a time. That's all it takes to start your nourishment or to give in to nourishment or to just nourish yourself. One bowl at a time. That's all it takes. So as you go through this week, remember that, carry that with you, and I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye.